Hello and welcome to Northside Now. This is the podcast where your three lovable hosts take you on a tour through all of the ministries and the latest happenings around Northside Church to keep you better connected with your church family. I'm your host, Patrick, and with me as always is Glenn Miller and Kevin Bryant. What's up, guys?
What's happening?
Hola, amigos.
Que pasta.
Making me hungry.
How's your spaghetti?
I haven't had any yet. I'm so hungry. Yeah, it's been a good week. It's, weather is still the weather that it is, right? It's
spring.
Warm, and it's not, and it's wet, and it's dry.
Welcome to Jackson in March.
Yeah.
I guess April.
Yeah.
April now.
April Fools. It's not March anymore.
That was my April Fool's joke. Gotcha.
One of the cool things I kind of mark spring by is when I go by. We live a little bit out in the country, right? Would you say? I guess it's out in the country. When we drive, there's this section of road where you can hear the frogs through the window.
Oh, geez.
As you drive by.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, it's spring. Yeah, the frogs are talking a lot.
Making a racket.
And our new abode, we're close to some frogs, and man, you can hear them inside just going crazy. Yeah, they're kind of fun. I enjoy it. It's a lot better than listening to sirens. So,
well, we live near a fire station, so we do.
You get to hear that too. Yeah.
Well, I'm in an apartment, so there's always noise.
Yeah.
There's people with kids that live next door, and you hear them running all the time. So.
Well, and we got a little bit further out. I thought we would be far enough away from the interstate, but I don't think we're as far as I thought we were. But I would like to know just what the decibel meter is of that interstate. Those big old rigs and all the cars just rolling down there at 75, 80 miles an hour. That produces a lot of noise.
Yeah.
When we were in Goodlettsville, we lived right by I-65.
Oh, goodness.
As you go past Nashville and up north, and you could hear at all hours of the night, if police or emergency vehicles needed to go somewhere up the road, and you'd hear that. I mean, we were less than probably 100 yards away from it.
Oh,
even though there was a section of trees, it didn't really stop the sound. So we sort of got used to being able to hear all that, and you can hear it through the walls and the windows and all that stuff. So
once you get used to something like that, and then you don't have it, then it's almost like
there is some of that, but I can definitely get used to this where we live now. It's much quieter.
Yeah, us too. I'm enjoying that part for sure.
Yeah,
and you can see the stars where I live, which makes me really happy.
Yes, the light pollution is a thing.
It is very much so.
So what'd you do this week, Patrick?
Well, Holy Week.
Yes.
Lots of services at church.
That's right.
Holy Week, the Super Bowl of church work.
Yeah.
And
everything was great. They had the rescheduled Easter egg hunt.
Egg hunt,
was awesome.
Had a beautiful day for that.
Yeah.
So that was good.
Healing service on Wednesday was good. Maundy Thursday. Good Friday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Every night.
Every night. That's part of it. But I remember when I was growing up as a kid, you'd have that, and then you'd turn around, and it seemed very long, you'd have revival. And that was an every night thing.
That's right.
It seemed like there was something every night at the church about once a quarter that you had to do.
Yeah, so, I remember that. That does bring back some memories where you'd have homecoming.
Yeah, homecoming.
In the fall or early or late summer. And you'd have, at least where we had like a gospel quartet that would come and every night of revival or whatever do. Man, that was a long time ago. But it was great. I mean, those are good childhood memories for me.
I remember people used to get so excited about those things too. I mean, they'd really, put on the dog, quote unquote, and freshen everything up. But it just was a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Now people are just excited that they can get back to regular church. It's
that's a real thing. It's totally a real thing.
Yeah,
because it's been just over a year since the shutdown, and we are.
It's funny on Facebook, and that you'll get the memories, and so there's a lot of year marks that we posted stuff. One of whether or not was a video that I'd done, for the youth last March, and you're just thinking, oh goodness, things improved since then. Thank goodness.
Well, and I'd put in a little plug for the stuff that the youth are doing in terms of the Donkey Talk podcast and whatnot. And the one that you had recently with some of the girls and the guys, of course, are doing theirs as well. But it's interesting to hear their thoughts and comments about what last year was like.
Yeah. It is, and it's interesting to hear the differences between the girls and the guys and their observations. Really interesting to hear how that went for each of them, each group. And but yeah, definitely the Donkey Talk podcast, which was the original podcast idea for Northside, and which brought us all together. So definitely Donkey Talk is out there on the Anchor app and all the youth socials. You can find it there too. So.
Explain the name Donkey Talk.
Well, hopefully
it's good.
Everyone remembers Balaam and his donkey in Numbers in the Bible, the Old Testament. And the donkey actually talked to Balaam, in case you're hearing this and you don't know what happened. But yes, there was a talking donkey in Scripture. And, the donkey was trying to help Balaam, and he was listening to him, kept beating him, and kept talking to him. And, the Lord was using him to help set Balaam straight. And so it's been a joke. We used to have a youth newsletter back in the day, and it was called Donkey Talk. And one of the youth said, "Didn't we used to?" And I said, "Oh, what a great idea!" So, yeah, that's what it is. And often people will look at kids and like, "Oh, there's a donkey talking," and they won't pay much attention. But we probably should pay a little more attention to what they're saying.
Well, we shouldn't look down on them because they're young.
That's also in Scripture. You're right.
That sounds good.
I've heard that somewhere before, once or twice. So
yeah, we've talked a lot. I know the three of us about kind of what's going on in our lives and in the culture and whatnot.
Yeah.
And without going into all the details and specifics, I think there's just a lot of hurt and a lot of hate and a lot of things that Jesus can help us with.
Oh, definitely.
And so it is such a important time for the church right now. And believers too, because we know that God's work doesn't just happen in the church, in the building.
That's right.
As a matter of fact, there's so many examples of the work Jesus did. It wasn't in the synagogue. It wasn't in the church. And so the challenge for me, as we think about all these things, whether we think, culture is going in the right direction or the wrong direction, how do we individually engage with that and represent Christ in all those situations? It's really a challenge when you think about it, because a lot of times in this last year and then even now, I think, okay, so everything is just falling apart.
Yeah.
Whether we think it's the cultural fabric of the United States or whatever we think about when it comes to politics and all those things, it just feels like stuff's broken.
Yeah.
And maybe we're broken. I know that that's true for many of us. We're all broken in some way, but how do we intentionally represent Christ, not only to our families, but to the people we come into contact with? And how does the cultural conversation, which we could have all kinds of episodes about that.
For sure.
How does that enter into what we as Christians are supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, when you just finish Easter and you just go through that whole process. Whenever we live in a world in a country where everything is canceled, if you don't agree with it, cancel culture.
Yep.
If I don't agree with it, or if it's doesn't make me happy, then, or if it's something, if it's on a different side of the stick than what I like to be on,
right?
And you just have the cross. He says, "How about I just forgive and show grace and mercy, and I cancel sin that you've committed, while I've committed none." I think the gospel gives a completely different message than what a lot of our young people and old people. I mean, we're all hearing this message. And so, Easter still to this day stands in opposition of a world that wants things to be done their way.
And that's a good reminder for us that so many times, even in the life of Christianity and churches, many times we get distracted and different things become the main thing.
Yeah.
Like whether it be a celebrity pastor or a mega church where you have a really dynamic preacher or teacher, and we start to listen to them because, out of desire to learn more about the Bible or life as a Christian or those kinds of things. And it can be dangerous to start to follow that person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And Easter is a fantastic reminder that there's only one thing to follow. There's only one story to follow, and that's the Jesus story. And he is the signpost, he's the light, and all these other things. Hopefully you would think that we as humans who call ourselves Christians are trying to be as true to that example as possible. Yeah. But the other side of that is we're all human.
Yep.
And so whether it be someone, I've found out just recently, just kind of going down a rabbit hole about some things of someone that I really sort of respected as a speaker in the Christian tradition, and how that's been tainted a little bit by some things that have come to light. And what does that do for me? Does that mean that I distrust the person now and totally distrust everything that was said, or all those things? How do I work with that?
Yeah.
And it's challenging when you have somebody on a pedestal who maybe didn't necessarily intend to be there, but they're speaking a message that is, or they're doing their best to speak a message that's true to the Christ example. But what happens when they fail?
Yeah.
Because they're human.
Yeah.
There's no other God human that's ever existed. And so how can they be perfect, and how can we rely on them solely when they're gonna make a mistake at some point?
Because when people put others up on a pedestal like that, it's almost like they expect them to live up to that. So when you're on that pedestal, it's like you almost have to be better than human to because why would somebody want to follow you if you're just like everyone else? It's like, what's the point? So I don't know. It's an interesting conundrum.
It's a tough thing. And I know we talked to Pastor Don last time about the pressure of that a little bit, and I think that the only way you get through it is through the Holy Spirit's power and Christ living in you. But I can't imagine, because I'm not a pastor, that how that feels.
Yeah.
To know that you have a platform, to know that you can change people's lives, and yet to know that you're fully human and you're going to make a mistake. So,
and some people kind of lean into it the other way, and the temptation gets them,
right?
And it kind of becomes that charismatic, almost cult leader, where they kind of start feeding on them, and they forget that they're supposed to be pointing people towards someone else other than themselves, and that's a dangerous thing as well.
All of us could come up with examples of that, even today in Christian culture.
Oh, completely. I mean, we have, there's a very well-known church world human who was putting out some great curriculum back in the early 2000s, I guess. And their whole theology just went a 180 of what they were doing back then. And I remember so vividly using this really great curriculum. It's when some of the first video curriculums were coming out, and they were really good. And you're just like, I wouldn't want that human teaching our youth today, or even back then. But back then it was good stuff. But now they're, so it is difficult, and even people in the church talking about some of that stuff. One of my first churches I was at, and I think all these ladies are dead, so I can talk about this now. But when you go to a new church, and one of the first things you try is they give you a wad of keys, and so you got to go try what key goes where, so at least you can somewhat move around the building.
Right.
And there was one key I did not have at the building. It was obvious because of the large sign by the door that this was the parlor. And this room was used like an hour a month, and then in the summer for brides and stuff. But you didn't go in there. Well, being the young youth worker I was, eventually I found a key and a time it was open, and we had youth in there one night. And the only way they knew we were in there was by the footsteps in the plush carpet. Well, I got grilled about that and was reprimanded, very difficult, But my thought process was, here you are, seeing you are who you are, with an incredible room that you could tell your youth, you're really special by having an opportunity to be here. Yet that was not even an entertained thought, So here we are as a church, and we have this really great thing, and we make it more about ourselves. We make it more about the other things instead of showing this really great thing that is alive and well in Scripture, is alive and well in us now. And so, way too often our churches and the Christian heart and the Christian life is like that parlor. It gets used once a month. And other than that, it's something that's good for opening up occasionally for a special occasion. But other than that, it's just a closed room.
Well, and I think it's super relevant now for Northside, because we're going into this period of time where there is going to be a transition.
Yeah.
And we're in prayer and meditation about, okay, so, God, provide the person that you've been preparing for this. But we should also be preparing ourselves for what are our expectations of this person. Definitely the surveys have been a really good way to give feedback and how kind of it's been laid on your heart. But there's a real danger, temptation to say, well, the church is going to be whatever this person makes it. And the church is not a building. The church is not a steeple. It's the people.
Yeah.
And
yes, y'all, he did do his hands.
I did.
Yeah. You can't say that without
no, you can't.
I can't help but not. But that's been my conviction, is that we're still a part of a body that's living, and it's not just about one person. Yes, the person will be visible. They will help cast vision, all of the things that will be in their role, but it's also about all of us too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is that danger, like you said, of us getting distracted about what our mission is here as Christians.
Well, and we recently with the youth did a study of Mark, the Gospel of Mark. We just finished it during Holy Week. And I got a question for you guys, because I guess this information, but it just really struck me hard this year. Was when Jesus died, all the disciples came to him and everything. And then, then they were all there. They went through the persecution. They went through all that. But every one of the disciples died a violent death, except for one. And they pretty well died exiled alone.
That's right.
Which might as well be, to some people, might as well be a violent death.
Can't have been easy.
He died in quarantine.
Yeah. Yes. But stop and think about that for a moment. In a world today where it's cancel culture, or there's always a story to be told behind the scenes, or someone to come forward and say, hey, that's been human nature since day one, is someone will be, he was good, but, there was a string over there that made this miracle happen, or whatever. You don't die a violent death or alone if there's something fake or behind the scenes wrong with that. So I know this Easter for me is just like, we proclaim a real Jesus, a real God. We proclaim a living God. And here we are. I mean,
he's the only one that we can put up on that pedestal that can withstand the scrutiny. We put these mega church pastors up there, and of course they won't be able to live up to it, but they need to remember, and we all need to remember, that we're supposed to be pointing people not to ourselves or to other humans. We're supposed to be pointing and directing people towards Jesus, who is able to stand up on that pedestal and withstand anything any judgment.
Well, why don't y'all think and this is the question, why don't you think we have that kind of fervor for our faith? Where, I'm not advocating that people come start violently killing us, but if they did, where would we stand? I know it's a hypothetical thing, but in a way it's not, because in a cancel culture and a thing where you're afraid of being shunned or put away or made fun of, and that's a real fear for a lot of people, or made irrelevant, where it even hurts people's incomes, why don't we stand up for Christ in that manner for us? I think that's something I think we should explore a little bit, maybe.
I think the first thought that I had is that for many of us, our faith is not a life or death question. And what I mean by that is there are some who I have known, had conversation with, is the only reason they're alive is because Christ was revealed to them by someone or just by a revelation. And they are only alive because of that. That is a life or death question for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the early disciples, when I think about it, it was life and death. Yeah. They had directly experienced the life of Jesus and his death.
Yeah.
And that was a very real kind of thing. And perhaps you could say it was an easier choice for them.
Yeah.
You could also say it was a more difficult choice because they could anticipate what was going to happen. Jesus said, you will experience the same as I do. So was it easier or more difficult for them? I don't know.
Yeah.
But in our life, we can get so distracted by so many other things. We forget that it's really a life or death question for us. It looks a little bit different maybe, but I think we're highly distractible people.
Yeah.
Our culture is so inundated with so much information and data and lots of opportunities to do a squirrel. you know? And when we don't intentionally bring ourselves back to square one, to the main thing, whatever, we start to wander away.
Yeah.
And forget that it's a life or death. It really is a life or death decision for us, but it's also a life or death decision for anyone. Mm-hmm. And so when you kind of come back to that, I think you get a little conviction of saying, well, I'm not on an island here.
Yeah.
What's my job to help other people see the life or death situation?
Yeah. Because we're always pointing to the pastor, right? Yeah. Patrick,
that's the pastor's job.
We put him on a pedestal or whatever. But no, that is every Christian disciple, follower is a pastor. I mean, they're a minister. They're a sharer and spreader of the gospel. So,
well, so like, for example, when people come in the door, this is sort of following on what I was saying before about reconsidering what our role is here as Northside and as members of it, but members of a body and a community. So do we view people that come through the door, everybody that comes through the door, especially someone we don't know, a new visitor, whatever, do we consider it a matter of life or death?
That's a great question.
If we did, would we, I mean, we have teams that are helps with in various churches. They call it assimilation, which is kind of a really cold word, but how do you get them plugged in?
Yeah.
Right. We were talking about this earlier. To really get someone plugged in, you need to know them.
Yep. Yeah.
It's not just like I've been to churches where I'm in the 30s. I'm in the 30s. We're a couple, we have kids.
Yeah.
So why don't you go meet with these people who are in their 30s and have kids? And that's not necessarily all bad.
Yeah. No.
But they don't know me.
Yeah.
They don't know if I'd rather spend time with, you gave the example of maybe someone who wants to spend time with older folks so they can learn from their example or whatever.
Yeah.
Years ago in this church, I can't remember where I heard it, but someone said you need to barbecue first.
Yeah.
And basically what that means is spend time with someone in order to get to know them, to be able to understand, let God impress upon you where you can help. But that's so challenging because it takes time.
Well, and I think that's one of the difficulties that we face. That one of the things I see in the culture is that everyone is going through such an identity crisis. We were kind of talking a little bit about this before we started recording, but everybody's kind of going through this identity crisis and just wants to be accepted by someone. And so when people come into the church, I think one of the difficulties is that yes, it's a come as you are, but it's not stay where you are. Yeah. And people don't like to be told that what they're doing is wrong. And so one of the difficulties that I've seen is that, it's easy to get people into the door, but it's almost easier to push them back out the door once you start saying, hey, the way that you're living isn't really the way
we can hold someone accountable.
Accountable, yes. Yeah. But it's I don't know, it's a fine line to try to walk.
Well, there's a new verbiage coming out in ministry to students, instead of program ministry. There's a new, I read here recently where they're starting to use the word practice. Practice ministry. Because you don't program medicine, you practice medicine. And so, after COVID, where we do need to get back to building relationships, we need to get back to visiting, because we've been, the great part of youth ministry is the things that happen in the gym or the parking lot or these downtimes, these unstructured times.
Right.
That's the real ministry that happens, because like you said, you're barbecuing at that point, right? And so we need to the point where we're practicing and not looking for a program to lead us, but we're practicing the ministry that God gives us in Scripture and spending that time with Him and then practicing it. And so there's a big change to move. Verbiage happens all the time in church world.
Sure.
And just like every other business or anything like that. But to be in practice of ministry instead of just programming it out there. And so fun days ahead. I'm excited. I mean, I think if we start having these conversations, this is just it's a lot of fun.
Well, and if all of us are focused on the same self-examination and really questioning in our prayer life and Bible study and those kinds of things, I really believe God's going to reveal exactly what He needs us to do.
Oh yeah.
But we were just talking the other night as a family a little bit about the WWJD.
Yeah.
When that became a popular thing. Everybody had the bracelet. We even had a youth musical called that. And now it's becoming HWLF.
Yeah.
So as a response to WWJD, what would Jesus do? He would love first.
Yeah.
And that's an easy thing to say, and it's kind of cool. You wear a bracelet and people ask you about it and you can talk about it. And I know some of the youth have some great openings and opportunities because they're able to do that and have those conversations. But the question has always been, what does that look like? Yeah. What does the loving first look like? And you can approach it from like a big old thing. Well, it's what Jesus did every day, but on a day-to-day kind of small interaction thing, what does that look like? Yeah. We try and teach our kids it's about being kind. It's about helping others. It's about giving someone a grocery cart at the grocery store. We shop at Aldi all the time. Sure. And so you have to have a little quarter to get the whatever. Just giving somebody a cart without them having to use a quarter. Yeah, that's a small little thing and maybe won't change somebody's life, but maybe it could. It could change their day. It could change whatever. Taking those small opportunities to show love, to show kindness by the little stuff. And I think that is what our challenge is as a church. How do we through our relationships take a little extra time, do a little something extra to do those things?
Yeah. Yeah. And Celeste was home with Clay recently and we were talking about loving first sometimes is saying no. And she's learning that as a parent. And, sometimes it's like, no is love. Yeah. And I think Jesus did tell us no, many times whenever, we don't like that necessarily, but and you can do that in a loving fashion, in a truthful, loving fashion, but good stuff. That's for sure. That is for sure. So we're over here looking at Patrick and, he looks like he's pretty well wore out after Holy Week there.
I just need to sleep and I'll be better.
Well, a lot of stuff that the staff does to prepare for the week. Yeah. And we're very thankful for all of the staff there that have put together all the cool stuff that happens around here.
Well, speaking of cool stuff that happens, Kevin, you went on a trip recently.
Well, we were blessed. I'm very thankful to be able to get to wait for a couple of days. There's been let's just say a lot of kind of stress and trauma in our family's life this last month or so. And so we needed some time to do a little self-care. And so we were able to get away for a couple of days. I actually brought everybody here along with because I wanted to give you guys just a little bit of a taste of what it's like. So let's listen to that. Hey guys, this is Kevin, and I must say I'm pretty excited. We're here at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville, Alabama. We're excited to be here. We're standing underneath a replica of the solid rocket boosters, external tank, and the orbiter, otherwise known as the space shuttle. It's just pretty amazing to take a look at and to understand that this kind of vehicle was what took folks to space. So we're going to kind of give you a little tour here as we go. So there's tons of stuff to see here at the Rocket Center. I was just walking under the Saturn I rocket that's 16 stories tall. It's pretty monstrous.
Yes, it was.
So we're here with the family, and lots of cool stuff to see, although COVID has been tough on everybody. Lori, you were saying that tons of the staff's been laid off just because of it?
I think what I read was 90%.
Wow, it's really difficult, but it's still a great place. If you're interested in space, you can see a lot of replicas, the T-38s that were trainers, and some of the other things. The kids came off the G-force accelerator, and the initial feedback is...
It's like when you like try to move, you can move your hands but not your neck because then you get dizzy, but like it feels like you're jello, like your legs are like all wobbly.
Like you're experiencing super gravity?
Yeah.
My neck was super tingly. It felt like I had Rice Krispies in my neck that were like snap, crackle, pop.
That might have been the Subway we had before.
That might have been my jaw doing its work.
One of the coolest things about the Space Center is obviously how much you can learn about space and other things. Like we were looking at the Space Shuttle tires, right?
Yes.
And what did they have to say about that?
That they don't get destroyed.
Why is that?
I did not read the rest of the article.
Well, they're filled with nitrogen, but they only use them. I think the front landing gear get used twice, and then they throw it away. And then the back gets used once just because of all the stress and everything that it goes through. But of course, this location is also the location of the famous space camp. You can come, I think, as a week and be a particular person on the crew and go through missions. They have training facilities. They have the setup is really, really pretty neat. And of course, you can spend the night and be a part of a crew. I'm sure it was fun. I wanted to do it as a kid, but never got the chance to do it. So as many of you know, the military is heavily involved in the space program, both from a historical standpoint, even today with the launch of satellites and intelligence gathering tools and things. But at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, they have lots of examples of some of the ballistic and various different kinds of missiles and their launch systems that were used early on in some of the world wars, and then also were precursors to a lot of the rocket technology, the Atlas rocket, for example. But even among all of those things, my son probably had the most intellectually stimulating question of the whole afternoon. And what did you say, Jaron?
I don't know.
Why are we here?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a food place, and we're sitting down, and I wasn't exactly sure why we were sitting down at a food place.
I took it as a deeper question and blew his mind for a second. Well, I have to say, of all the things at the Space and Rocket Center, the Saturn V Hall is the most detailed and the most exciting for a space nerd like me. They go through the entire ins and outs of how the Saturn V rocket was built and assembled and the issues they went through. And so as a history nut and a science nut like me, it was amazing. I'm actually standing right out front in the Apollo courtyard in the middle of a bell nozzle. You may be able to hear the echo, but regardless, it's been a great day. We encourage anybody who's interested in science, in space. Hey, if you want to be like a rocket engineer, rocket scientist, as they say, come take a look at it. Even if not, it's a great part of our history. So many things, as we've talked about before, have come to our culture as a result of the space program. So thanks for taking this tour along with me. Now back to you guys in the podcast room.
Dude, I guarantee you were like in heaven, weren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. I would have been. We closed the place down. Honestly, I was one of the last people in the exhibit hall before it was closing time.
Was Lori like, kids, go get your dad? We got to go to the van.
She did say, well, she gave me permission, which, oh, God love her. She's great. She knew I would be in there for a long time. She said, just go ahead. We and the kids, we're just going to go out. And when you're done, you just come out. It'll be fine. But I did take a note when I was only halfway through and there were like 5 more minutes left in before it closed and the cleaning crew was coming and I thought, oh, okay, well, but it's just, I blame my forebears, my ancestors, my grandmother, who was a sociology professor and a missionary in Africa and just was constantly thirsting for knowledge and really inspiring to me. But I just get stuck in those places. I just love to learn and read about history and how all these people that I never knew even existed worked together to build something really huge and amazing. I was kind of in heaven there.
I loved how the kids were explaining how they felt after
they're like, well, okay, whatever.
Well, they're like, oh, my brain was,
Yeah, exactly. Well, and they, I think, enjoyed it too. There's beyond what we actually did, it's about being together.
Sure.
And I am so thankful for where we are now. And I've known in our family's history and many other families that being together as a family is not always fun.
Yeah.
Or peaceful.
Yeah.
Or healthy. And so I thank God every day for the ability in those moments to have some really peaceful together time. Yeah. And for those who are listening and are blessed to have that as well, give thanks for that.
Yeah.
Because, many people listening to this know that family is not always a safe place.
Yeah.
And I'm just really thankful we could have that time together.
That's good. Yeah. Well, we're glad y'all got to do that. That sounded fun. we'll have to go next time. I'll take video.
I was a little jealous. I kind of want to go check it out now.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is really not that far away from here.
Yeah.
And if you don't mind driving 2 or 3 hours,
it's really not that far.
Yeah, it's really not that far at all.
And those things are big too. It's just amazing.
Amazingly big. It's just like you stand next to it and you feel so small, and there's just a real power. Just what would that feel like I've never been to a launch, but I've heard that miles and miles away, you can feel the rumble and all just that, so much power.
Technically just a controlled explosion.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's a pretty good analogy of the way, Christianity can be for us.
Oh yeah.
There's so much power in God's nature and the Holy Spirit, which he's given to us as a gift. How do we use it?
Yeah.
Are we tapping into it? Are we using it? We've known, you can count numbers and numbers of stories of great Christian people we would consider have changed the face of the planet.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's the Billy Grahams or, all kinds of folks. Did they have anything different or special about them that we can't? They have gifts and talents. God chose them for a particular role at a particular time, but we have that opportunity too. If you change one person's life,
oh yeah,
that's power.
Yeah.
And it's not because of you.
Yeah.
God works through you. But
we're all parts of the body, and we all have different callings. Not all of us are called to be Billy Graham, but everybody has their particular gifting, and using that, for the glory of God is what it's there for. So
right.
Yeah.
And we talked about people on a pedestal. Not everybody will either get the opportunity or have the skills to do that, but that's really beyond that. That's not the point.
Yeah.
Because all of us have that ability to share Christ with someone. Christ is the real power. Jesus is the power that changes lives, not us.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Patrick, there's not a whole lot post-Easter to be sharing about what's coming up. We'll have some stuff probably the next week or two.
No, I think everybody's kind of feeling like I am, where we just need to sleep for a day or two, and then we'll come back and be ready to go.
But there is a new way for our listeners to interact with us.
Yes.
An email and social media platform. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, we have an Instagram page now. You can go check it out. It's Northside Now Podcast. And you can get in touch with us directly. Just email us at podcast@northsidejackson.com. And send us your feedback. Let us know how you're feeling about the show, things you'd like for us to talk about, anything like that. Just let us know. Yeah,
definitely ask us questions. You'll see, we all three have access to that. So you'll see all of us posted different things from time to time. And maybe there was a tease, and maybe if you'll look soon, maybe the old yellow suit might be around.
Well, if it comes out of mothballs, then it might be a little bit worse for wear. But the original intent would still be there. I mean, there to praise God on a Sunday like this last week or whatever. You never know.
Yeah, definitely hit us up and give us a like and reach out to us. Ask us some questions. If there's anything you'd like for us to talk about, or guests in the church that you'd like to have come to the podcast, or maybe there's a ministry area that you'd like to know more about here at Northside. Definitely let us know. We would be glad to get some of those leaders or people of that particular ministry area into the podcast room. And you may even get to see a few pictures of the podcast room. We talk about how amazing this place is.
I got to spruce it up a little bit.
Well, one of the things we've talked about is not only we want to make sure that the staff, we talk in the intro about getting to know what's going on with Northside now and the staff and the ministries and those kinds of things. But we've also had in our planning sessions about topics. Mm-hmm. And so that's exactly where you folks that are listening to this can suggest what is something that you'd like to hear more about. And we are thinking through how we pull together folks from the church, maybe some folks from outside the church too, to speak about different topics, whether it be, mental health issues, which has been on all of our minds this last year, or church transitions and lots of different things like that. We did the Valentine special, which is a lot of fun. And I think that we can do some of those topical things too, but we'd love to have your feedback about what what you're interested in listening to. So,
and I will post links for the Instagram page, and I'll put our email address in the show notes. So check that out.
That'd be great. We hope to see you on the Insta.
Do it all for the gram. Well, thanks for podcasting with me today, guys.
My pleasure.
It was always fun.
Always fun. And thank you, guys. Make sure you check out the social medias, and we'll see y'all next week.
Bye-bye.